Hello, everyone, and welcome to the astrology for July of 2025. And I would like to give a big thank you to the Wholeness Network for having me do an astrology presentation for you as we've done so. And we're halfway through the year. Can you believe it? I don't know how time is going this fast. That being said, July is a packed month. There's a lot to talk about here, a lot to unpack. Most of the time in the summer, planets go retrograde. We've already had Pluto retrograde since early May. And so you can see we have several retrogrades coming up this month, and we'll go through each of those as well as the moon cycles. So let's jump in and get started. So the first retrograde we have this month is Neptune, and it will be about 158 days, and it will go back to 29 degrees Pisces, and that will stop December 10th. And so Neptune moves slowly. We're going to go back to that 29th degree. And the 29th degree has been a big degree year, this whole year, essentially, as a lot of these planets are changing signs, which is why it's such a big deal is between 2024, 2025, and 2026. So, so Neptune will join Pluto retrograde, and this will be July 4th. Happy Independence Day, America. And back in March, March 30th is when Neptune popped into Aries briefly. And so it'll go back to Pisces and then stay in Aries until 2039. So I was thinking about that. And I'm like, well, what's really happened since March 30th? And when we think about Neptune as spirituality, and Aries is something changing or starting something new. And we have a new Pope. So May 8th was when the new Pope Leo the 14th was elected from the United States. Shocker, right? But amazing. And I love that he spoke in Italian and then Spanish. That was really exciting. And then I was also thinking about sometimes people think might is right. And if we think about what just happened with Iran, there was a bombing on June 22nd. That kind of feels like a Neptune and Aries thing. And so we'll see how these things play out. But sometimes this little taster that we get when a planet first moves into a sign can kind of be the idea of this is how things might play out later. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is this is what everybody's talking about right now because Uranus is moving into Gemini. Now, most of the time, Uranus is in a sign for about 7 to 8 years. And it will stay in Gemini once it finally goes in there for good until May 22nd of 2033. Doesn't that seem like a sci-fi movie, 2033? So anyway, so it'll settle for good once we get to May 26, 2026. But right now, popping in July 7th. And so this will be our taster this summer until Uranus goes retrograde. And so if you don't really like what's happening this summer, sometimes when we consciously invite planets or energies to work with us, it sort of gives more of like a pathway for the energy to go. So around November 7th is kind of when we can do a revision date to see if there's anything we want to kind of activate or change ourselves or within ourselves. No, and then it takes 84 years for Uranus to complete its cycle. So there's not that many people who have been around with Uranus and Gemini. So this is kind of like interesting for us to experience. And when we look at Uranus, we want to think about how is change going to happen for me? What might be kind of unexpected? And so you can see what house Uranus will be moving through wherever you have Gemini. So those early degrees of Gemini is kind of where you're going to see what area of your life Uranus will be working on, where it might offer more flexibility or change your routine in some way or bring unexpected solutions to things you've been working on. Because ultimately, Uranus is a planet of change, and it was discovered in 1781, just after the American Revolution. And so there's something about freedom, awakening, um, choosing something different, having something different happen. When we think about Gemini, that's the I think sign. So there's a versatility, a curiousness, an adaptability, a wittiness. Sometimes it can be a little superficial. Gemini can be a little superficial, or scheming, perhaps. So seeing we're going to shift your perspectives, have even maybe unusual friends, because Gemini can kind of be like the other and our playmates and people like to have fun with. And so 0 degrees to 3 degrees in the mutable signs, or 27 to 29 degrees of the fixed signs, they're going to be stimulated all year, basically, right? Because all these different things changing signs. So Saturn is in a sign for 2.5 years, and then we have Uranus for 8 years, Neptune for about 14, and then Pluto around 20 or so. So there's been big shifts going on. Because Uranus is going to be in Gemini, there's a connection to Mercury. And so Mercury, sometimes we have like a short attention span. So we might need to do things over a couple times during the next 8 years. And when we think about Gemini too, we can think about freedom of speech. We think about social revolutions. The other thing we can think about too is, Mercury kind of rules our brain, how we think, our consciousness. And some people say that Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury. So one of the things we can think about doing, because Gemini rules the lungs, and we can also think about the brain. We think about Uranus and how it's like the electrical synapses firing and things like that. We can do breath work for our nervous system regulation. So just think about if over the next 8 years, you really work on caring for your nervous system through things like conscious breathing or meditating. I just can't imagine how amazing all of our bodies, how much better we would all focus by having nervous systems that were really regulated and cared for, and developed. So developing our consciousness, one of the ways to develop our consciousness, I believe, is through our nervous system and calming ourselves and shifting from the reptilian reactionary to the conscious choosing and sitting with things and becoming the observer to things. So when we talk, one thing that was interesting was that Uranus and Pluto were conjunct in the 1960s, when there were all these activism things for, equality with like the races, the sexes, sexual orientation. And so there's going to be a nice trine happening with Uranus and Pluto once Uranus is shifting into Gemini. And so this could be a furthering of that, manifesting those unalienable human rights that we all have on some level, right? And we're entering into this big yang cycle with fire and air having shifted from all that earth and water. So we'll see how this kind of changes the collective. I now want to talk about the full moon in Capricorn that's going to be happening on July 10th at 4:36 Eastern time. And so, as you know, when we have a full moon, that's when the moon is now directly opposite of the sun, and full moon is in Capricorn. So anything around like 16 to 20 degrees of the cardinal signs will be affected. So if you have your sun there, your rising sign, your moon, anything like that, you want to take a look at those things. And so when we have the full moon, there's something about completion, fullness. And what's interesting is that this isn't too far off where the Saturn-Pluto conjunction was in 2020 when COVID had the shutdown. And Capricorn is a lot about the authority, and we think about structures like government and institutions and things like that. So there's a way we can kind of look at like 5 years ago, this was like a hot point area, and looking at how government is now and how do we look at authority from the external versus the internal, how we internalized our own Saturn in the sense of, do I accept the things I need to work with? Am I building my life in a constructive manner? Or am I kind of like trying to like dodge the dodge the bullet here and there and trying to get away with the least amount possible. So seeing how you feel with that. And do you feel like you're living from your heart, which is what Cancer kind of asks us to do? Can we experience those emotions that might be a little tougher, but still need to be experienced? So living through our hearts. And Jupiter has been in a square relationship with the Saturn and Neptune. So that's kind of shifting a little bit away now. And so there's kind of like, how do we want to grow our structures in a way that's productive to support us stepping into our citizenship in a more self-actualized way, I guess we could say. And Uranus is going to be somewhat close to Venus here. And so that could be like the radical act of love. It's what kind of freedom do we want with our values? So coming back to those feelings of, am I being authentic in my own life? Are there things being revealed around, stability, structure, routine, these things that are kind of mandated into us as people? Okay. Then July 13th, Saturn goes retrograde for 137 days. And this will be at 1 degrees Aries, 56 minutes. And so that is going to stop November 27th when Saturn gets to 25 degrees Pisces, 9 minutes. So again, we're talking about Saturn, and Saturn, represents our governments, our institutions, corporations, things that have a lot of structure to them, paradigms. And Saturn, when it turns retrograde, just like several days later, it's going to go right by Neptune. Now, they're not going to be conjunct exactly until February 2026, but this month might give us a preview in some ways about what we can expect looking into February of 2026 when they are actually conjunct. And the reason why everybody's buzzing about this is because they're going to be conjunct at 0 degrees Aries, which is considered a really important point for the entire world. So we'll see what happens with that. So that will be revealed more fully, but just kind of seeing what that brings up within you, what you see happening in the news, things like that. And so when Saturn goes retrograde, it's a good time to look at our priorities, look at how we're managing our life. What are we building? Maybe there's a couple of projects we're working on, but authentically, we really feel like there's just one that really sings to us. So permission for you to decide, okay, my resources will be better spent focusing on this one thing and giving it my all, because this is what's really calling me. I want to climb this mountain because I like that mountain. And I think I can grow from this mountain experience versus the drudgery of just doing it to do it, just because I have to do it. So finding those things that excite you, that bring you the joy, and revising your energy, revising how you're attacking things, ultimately feeling like I'm empowered to do this, because that Aries energy is the courage to do the hard things, Okay. And then Mercury goes retrograde. Oh, this happens, 3 to 4 times a year. So this isn't as big of a deal because it's pretty frequent, but there are people who definitely can feel Mercury retrogrades. So as always, it's double check your emails, look over that text really quick, be to the airport on time, if not early, for travel plans, and just kind of being wise about those things. And, Mercury's going to be in Leo. And so the actual retrograde is 24 days, but we always had that shadow period before and after. So, and with all these other planets going retrograde, it just might not be a bad idea just to take that extra time, just to make sure you're really conscious of what you're saying, what you're doing. And because Uranus is shifting into Gemini, Mercury rules Gemini. So again, there could be some surprises or exciting things that happen, unexpected things that might happen with communications and such. Okay, and then we also have the new moon coming up, and this is going to be at 2 degrees Leo. And when we have the new moon, the sun and the moon are together, it's a dark sky. And that Leo energy is very creative, very vibrant. It's about exploring our talents, playing that song or that thing, dance like nobody's watching you, kind of a feel where it's like we can honestly just create because it's something that's bubbling up within us and not being judgy or super critical about us. So maybe looking at where you see Leo in your chart, early degree Leo, and thinking to yourself, okay, maybe there's an invitation here for me to be creative about this area of my life. Um, and so, for example, this is the ninth house. So the ninth house, we could say something about maybe there's something I can be creative about what I'm learning in this part of my life right now, taking an interesting art class at the community uh, college or something like that, or maybe doing some theater, face painting, you know, improv would be great. Yes. And what's interesting is that we have Pluto very tightly opposite this lunation. So this might be one that you, on July 24th, 2025. So this might be when you feel more powerfully. You know, Pluto always gives us this opportunity to change, to shift, to surrender, to let go of the things that no longer serve us. So maybe we can, you know, say goodbye to that negative voice and just say, hey, you get to have a seat right now. I'm going to go have fun and enjoy things. And moving out of that comfort zone, right? We also see Saturn and Neptune in Aries. They have this nice, I circled this in red because this makes a trine to the new moon in Leo. And so this can give you like an extra spiritual component, or maybe really making a serious commitment to something that you want to build around your creativity, that we can commit to for ourselves. And then we also have Uranus shifting into Gemini. And this makes, I circled it in pink because there's this nice sextile between Uranus and the sun and moon, and also between Uranus and Saturn and Neptune. So this kind of brings in an eccentricity, something kind of stimulating, something kind of electric. You know, Uranus, when it has that softer aspect, can be something that's kind of unexpected, but like pleasant surprise, perhaps. And what we're going to see with these outer planets is what they call like a minor trine. So we're going to see this minor grand trine. So we're going to see this Uranus talking to the Pluto with a trine, but then there's this nice sextile. Okay, so there's going to be this next 2026, 2027, we're going to be seeing this little shifting of these four outer planets, kind of giving each other supportive, kind of friendlier aspects, which is nice. So we'll see how that plays out. So that is what I have for you regarding July. And as you can see, it's a lot of things. And we're really, it just does feel like things are moving faster. And it's, I think, ultimately a paradigm shift in what are we as a collective believing, because I think ultimately a lot of this is about our consciousness and how we are choosing to be energy stewards. So looking at these different things happening, a lot of invitations to contemplate things, which, you know, we don't always take the time to like sit and think about something, but that's really what contemplation is. It's almost like a form of meditation where we could get insights about things, and we just allow something to kind of unfold for us. So I think it's a great time to start working on our nervous systems. So when we have that resiliency for surprises that might pop up, we can kind of stand in our powers with that. And I'm very excited to be with you today, and I will see you in a month. Take care, everybody.